2030.
Saudi Arabia, the Public Investment Fund,
It's a
there's
big
a lot of
vision.
excitement
It's
around
transformational
specifically.
change. Every aspect of the kingdom, economic, social, cultural, religious.
The 2030.
The 2030.
This is the 2030.
Yalla.
This is the 2030 episode 54. 54? I think it's 54. Dr. Hanaa, hello. If it's not, we'll edit that. How are you? Nice to see you. Welcome back to the United Kingdom.
Thank you. Yes, nice to see you as well. Welcome back to the United States.
We're in two united places. Yeah, and it was great to see you very briefly in Riyadh when you were there on business. I was there as well. You left in the calm before the storm, just before President Trump's visit, which we will be discussing on this episode with an interview with Mr. Charles Hallab from the U.S. Saudi Business Council, who was there. If you follow him on LinkedIn or are connected, you will see that he was kind of out and about, shaking hands, patting backs. And that was a heck of a week in Riyadh. So we were both on travel and we did not do an episode last week. So we apologize, but we are so back. And how was your travel? You were all over the region, Oman, Eastern Province, Riri. How was everything? How was your travel?
Yeah, everything was great. There's always that lag though when you come back after being away for a while. So just catching up on things. But, I was there working on a really fun project, something very, very, very close to my heart. So it was a great trip. I was actually on two different projects, but the one in Saudi was one where I get to interact with students and talk to them about their aspirations, their dreams for the future. And this is, where I get my energy from. So we're building something very cool. And this was a user experience kind of roadshow to kind of refine our prototype. So I cannot wait for this to kind of get off the ground and I can share more information about it.
It is a cool prototype. You have cool partners. I enjoyed meeting them. How was Oman? Was Oman fun?
I've never been to Oman before. I think we recorded.
We talked about it last
Oman,
time. Yeah,
we did.
I mean, time is kind of like in a vortex right now. Yeah. Yeah. So I landed here yesterday afternoon. Of course, it's then 2.5 with traffic, 3.5 hour drive to the farm, which is unbelievably beautiful. But it was a very good trip to Riyadh, a long trip, 10 or 11 days. I think it was 11 days. So everybody was really happy to see me, which is always nice, to get that reception. I picked up the children at school and kind of surprised them. I guess they knew I was coming, but they were like, "Oh my gosh, you're back!" And I was like, "Yeah, it's me." So it's good. IRL. It's good to be back, and we do have a great show, great conversation with Charles coming up. We'll do some news as well, and we got a ton of feedback. And it was kind of an enormous amount of controllable amount of feedback actually on our episode or on our segment about the name of the Arabian versus Persian Gulf. And we said, hey, this is kind of getting the comment section was too much for us to manage at the time, but lots of good chatter there. And we really encourage that kind of feedback. We just ask that everybody is civil to other people in the comment section when they make comments. And you can say whatever you want about us or at least me, but so I think we should just jump right into this convo with Charles. He's the man. He's doing some really cool work at the Business Council. Obviously we're in this new situation now, new paradigm. There's a lot of words that we use to kind of nail it down between the United States and Saudi Arabia after President Trump's visit. I think we should just jump right into that. What do you think, Dr. Hanaa?
Let's do it.
Yalla. Charles Hallab is the president and CEO of the U.S. Saudi Business Council. He's a longstanding member of the board of directors of the council and the founder of Barrington Global, an international legal and strategic advisory firm focused on the intersection of law, business, policy between the Middle East and West, a graduate of Georgetown University, the Hoyas. Charles, thanks for joining us on the 2030.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here.
So, Charles, we have a mutual friend and he knows about the interview and he wanted me to ask you as the first question, tell me the story of the first time that you came to Saudi Arabia. I think you were 17 years old is what he said. Is
Oh,
that correct?
no. Oh, no. This is really bad. With apologies to your viewers and listeners. Um, he knows the story because at our 30th anniversary, I got up there and I tried to weave it elegantly into my speech and then started to cry like a little baby. Um, so now half of Riyadh knows the story. But no, believe it or not, I first came here in 1975 as a 5-year-old and lived here for 2 years with my family. So my connection to Riyadh, to Saudi Arabia, go way back.
Amazing, but there's some story. So what we're gonna get here is there's a story. The story's amazing. Half of Riyadh knows, but it's an emotional story. And if you want to leave it there, that's totally
Oh
cool.
no, I don't. There's not much story beyond it. The story was how embarrassing, that I blubbered like a baby when I was recounting this. But for me, my first memories of the world are memories of Saudi Arabia. Those are my first memories of my dad and my mom, and learning to ride a bike and all the things that one remembers from one's very first memories in life. So it's Saudi is in my heart and soul. So that was the point at the dinner, and remains the point, and part of the reason I took this position, of course. Sure, sure. Yeah, sure. Thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to talk about it. The U.S. Saudi Business Council is an old and storied organization. It's very, very different than any other business council I've ever come across. And I did devote huge amounts of time and energy to it long before I became president and CEO, because it was the most worthwhile organization I had come across in my career. But it is a bilateral business council formed, and this is the incredibly unique part, by the two governments at the highest levels, by royal decree, actually. And I don't know of any other council formed by royal decree and by executive action on the US side. In its current incarnation, we're about 30 years old, but really before that goes back about 50 years. The discourse and the interaction that led to the creation of the current council 30 years ago was started in 1974. So over its many years, it's achieved many things. It's been right there, as I also said in my speech, at really important times in the history of Saudi Arabia and the history of the relationship between the U.S. and Saudi Arabia. And its mandate is to facilitate business between the two countries, very simply: trade, commerce, investments, and everything that goes along with that.
So what does that look like? I mean, like, you have organizations in the U.S. government that help. You have the Chamber of Commerce, and they have their own sort of Middle East division, and with Steve Lutz and those guys. And then you have the Ministry of Investment. And I assume you have sort of working, ongoing partnerships with them to kind of collaborate.
Exactly. Yeah. I have the highest respect for all of the stakeholders you just mentioned, Steve and Nicole at the U.S. Chamber. We work very, very closely with MISA and their team, very, very closely with the Ministry of Commerce and GAFT in particular and their team, and also have a very lovely collaborative relationship with AmCham, hence this podcast.
Yeah.
That's how I came to you.
So I guess, and that's super interesting. I think we want to talk about President Trump's visit last week, and sort of, it was obviously a huge week in Riyadh. He brought a really impressive delegation with him, business leaders, and this always happens, right? When you have a president come, there's some business delegation, but this one was kind of next level, Jensen Huang, Sam Altman, Elon Musk, everybody. Yeah. How do we characterize this visit? I mean, what are we looking at? A reset? Is it more than that? What give us some thoughts on what you think the outcome was, and what was accomplished, and just talk about the visit from your lens and from your role.
I really do think it is a reset. I mean, and maybe reset doesn't quite um, get to it. I mean, a modest understatement, to be honest. I mean, a rebirth, uh, a renaissance of the relationship, particularly on the business side, which we're elated about at the U.S. Saudi Business Council. When U.S. Saudi business is turbocharged, that obviously warms our hearts and energizes us, and that's how we feel. I came away from it um, really impressed, and I'm not just saying that because I need to say that. I'm a pretty straight shooter. I think no matter what end of the political spectrum you are on, what side of the pond you are on, there was just an electricity and an energy in the room that I have never seen before. And I've been doing business in the kingdom professionally for over 25 years. So I do think it's a reset, a revival. I think I used the expression, we're taking a strong relationship and turning it into a true partnership. And that's what I see going forward. And that's how the council is positioning itself going forward at this point.
I think, it was definitely brought up over and over again about how deep the relationship roots are, how long Saudi Arabia and the US have really actually been close to one another. And that came up quite a bit in all media. And I was going to ask you about the energy. That was my next question, actually. So you kind of, you beat me to it.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that I talk about when I'm discussing Saudi Arabia with people that haven't been to the country in a long time, or maybe look at it more academically or don't know anything about it, is that today's Riyadh has this energy, and young people, especially within the kingdom, are just super excited about the way things are going. And, they see an exciting future ahead of them. Whereas in other parts of the world, they might not see that. I mean, I'm in the UK. I talk to young people, they're not that excited about their future. They're pretty, it looks grim to them. So I'd love for you to tell me a little bit more about that energy in the room, and where that kind of, who was excited about what?
Yeah. Well, who was excited about what might be difficult, but the energy was there. There's just no question. There were hundreds and hundreds of executives from the US in attendance across the political spectrum, potentially many of them, if not most of them, Democrats, all jazzed, enthused, and excited. Selfies all the way around with everyone possible, and that's a different picture than I've seen in the past. So that's just one way of thinking about it. There are many different ways to describe it, but the interest going in and the elation and excitement coming out is unprecedented. There's no doubt about that. You only need to look at my inbox to see that. I mean, it's really incredible.
We want to see the inbox. We want to see the, an illegal recording of the speech you gave. We've got some documents we want to follow up on. And that rings true, right? I mean, so this is new paradigm in a way. And the thing is, for you, now the work begins. This is not like an accomplishment in and of itself. I mean, it's a huge milestone, but now you guys have this window to get to work. And that's my questions about that window. I mean, are we looking at a totally new reset in the future indefinitely? Are you thinking maybe like this, even if it's, slightly political, will there be a relapse or anything like that? Like, is there a 4-year window to really seize the opportunity for U.S. companies and pretend maybe you're speaking directly to executives from them, many of whom listen to the show? Yeah. Is there a window here, or is it a totally new ballgame going forward?
Well, there's always a window. I think the window here is 12 years or 20 years. I don't think it's 4 years. I think it's apolitical in this way. I really do. I mean, it's unfortunate if people see this as through a political lens, because there's so much more going on here. Part of my frustration, perhaps yours as well, has been communicating to people in the US, even at the highest levels, what's happening in Saudi Arabia. This provides an opportunity to educate them. And once they're educated, there's no going back. Once they see that the lives of millions of girls and women have been changed forever for better, once they see the advances across the spectrum of industry, etc., there's no turning back. It's getting them across that line. It's finding the ways to inform them, involve them, and this event, although just one event, I think was a huge catalyst in that direction. And yes, that's right. You stole my line to my team, which is now the work just begins. I mean, now we get to work. And if you want a scoop, I can give you a small one. Today we will announce, or tomorrow, the launch of the Strategic Partnership Center within the U.S. Saudi Business Council, following on the announcement of the Strategic Partnership Initiative between the two governments. We have been approved and endorsed by both governments to do that, and we will be working very, very closely with businesses to create, facilitate, and conclude partnerships. So this is not just about fanfare. It's not just about MOUs. It's about taking words and turning them into actions. It's about taking commitments and turning them into investments. And we're so excited to be right at the heart of that effort.
That's really, that's really great news. Very Thank exciting. You. And have you ever felt like this is, a bigger challenge ahead of you than the one that is ahead of you now, to really actually now to start attracting the companies to come and do that? I mean, you had the event, but right, like how else can you bring delegations and expose them to what's happening? Like what are some of the challenges that are in place still?
Well, it's perceptions, misperceptions, to be more accurate, and that's just the nature of the job. I mean, that is, the onus is on us to challenge those, to counter those. I do think we need to do a much better job of bringing people back and forth, and not just high-level delegations where rings are kissed and so on and so forth. I think young, energetic, brilliant Saudis should be, should be going back and forth to the United States. Of course, there are many students there already, but I think delegations of young professionals should be going back and forth between the two countries. And I'd like to see some initiative in that respect. I'll probably propose it at some point relatively soon, even beyond what's being done. And a lot is being done. I just think more can be, and now is the time. If now is not the moment, then there isn't one. This is it. And if I can harken back to one of your earlier questions about electricity in the room, we pushed hard for a quality of life session at the forum, because I felt, of course, mining is exciting, and tech is exciting, and energy, renewable or traditional, very, very, very important. But how about that stuff that captures people's imaginations? How about the magic of arts and entertainment and culture and tourism? And this is the stuff, when I come to Riyadh now, and remember, I've been coming since 1998 professionally. This is the stuff that just blows my mind. Whatever your ultimate goals are, even if they're primarily in these sectors, these other sectors, these quality of life areas are going to provide the impetus for people to come, for people to understand Saudi Arabia comprehensively. And that's what we're shooting for at the Council, a very comprehensive understanding of the opportunity of Saudi Arabia and the opportunity of the Saudi-U.S. business relationship.
Yeah, and those things are also kind of business related as well. I mean, like if you're looking to do business in Saudi Arabia, and let's use mining as an example, and you're a huge U.S. mining company, you're going to have to move people to Saudi Arabia as part of what you're doing. For sure. One concern you're going to get from the executives and non-executives that you're moving there is, hey, what's it like to live there? Like, what's it going to be like for my family? And those things like really matter to the executives of those organizations, but also to the people that are going to move there. Communicating what the answers to those questions is an important part of business development, which I think is what you were saying. And those things should be highlighted just as equally as everything else. They're also really cool. There's a lot going on in those spaces. So
So true. You said it
Yeah.
better than I did, but I couldn't agree more.
Well, that's the first time that would ever happen, and it will never happen again. I guess I want to ask you next about the sectors. So like you look at this list of companies that came with President Trump, you look at what was highlighted in deals, and you noted all of them: tech, mining, defense. What sectors are, maybe have the biggest opportunity right in front of them? And then are there other sectors that don't seem as obvious that maybe anyone listening to this show or watching it on YouTube is thinking, hey, like this is a new business opportunity, a new area for me that I didn't even think about?
Well, it's going to sound like a little bit of a repeat of what I just said, but there are huge opportunities in tech, and tech is not, narrow. It is very broad. Whether it's data centers, AI, deep tech of all sorts. So that in itself, we could spend several days talking about. Mining will create corollary opportunities and industries around it. Energy, don't write off traditional energy that's still going strong. Still so much to do. We have a strong cohort in the Eastern Province at the council, very enthusiastic about the opportunities in traditional energy going forward, but renewable energy, of course, as well. But I don't think people are, to your point, I don't think people are thinking about the many other opportunities that necessarily go along with this. And education, healthcare are two enormous areas, I think, that should be highlighted, along with the quality of life sectors I mentioned earlier, because all of that feeds together.
I think there's another thing that I feel is really important that, a lot of young Saudi entrepreneurs are trying to enter the market and trying to kind of find the opportunities. But maybe it's that entrepreneurial thinking that you have in the US that really is another asset that needs to come kind of with this relationship. And are there programs that are, and you mentioned, perhaps getting some of these kind of delegations of younger people going back and forth, but is this something that you think about? I mean, the US is a leader in terms of small and medium companies and innovation. And I would love to see more of that thinking kind of trickle down through this process into also kind of educational programs for young people as well.
For sure. I mean, Saudi's pretty on top of that. There's a lot going on through MISA, through MISC, through the Commerce, Ministry of Commerce. So many programs. I almost think part of the problem is making sure everyone knows about them and avails themselves of those opportunities. But maybe Saudis have something to learn from the US. But these days, I think the US has a lot to learn from Saudi Arabia as well, to be candid. I see incredible dynamism, entrepreneurship in Saudi Arabia. I mean, in ways I haven't seen elsewhere in the Gulf, elsewhere in the world at the moment. And I've done deals and traveled all over the world. I don't know any place that is as electric as the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia at the moment.
Can you give us an example of, kind of something that you've seen that you really think that could be something that people outside of Saudi Arabia could really learn from?
I mean, how much time do you have?
It's a podcast, infinity time. Yeah.
Yeah. There are 20, no
30.
Rules.
Yeah. 20, 30 podcasts right there.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, just start with the amazing accomplishments in tourism. I used to come here, and I'm not shy to say that when I used to come as a young professional, it was not as welcoming as it should have been. You come now and you feel you're with family. I mean, from the moment you come to the airport, which used to be very tense for me, a tense experience in the old days, you come now and it's the smiles and the welcomeness that carries through all the way to the hotels and the restaurants. But just take some time to go to Al Ula or to the Red Sea and you'll experience the best of the best in terms of tourism and resorts. And my mind is blown still every time I come to Saudi Arabia and try something different, whether it's Diriyah or anything else. I mean, it's that I would start there and then just engage with people on the street. I mean, the conversations. This is perhaps a lame answer to a very good question, but I try to engage with people everywhere I go. But those conversations I'm having at the mall, in the restaurant, with the poor Uber drivers who are stuck with me in the back, you just see it, you feel it in everything they say, in the opportunities that have presented themselves that no one could have dreamed of 10, 20 years ago in Saudi Arabia. So it just starts with communication, I think, and so many people have opinions about Saudi Arabia that are based on nothing, based on total ignorance. Just come and see for yourself is sort of my message.
I'm glad you say that. The thing that I push on other people, I'm like, make sure you talk to the Uber drivers. Like that, I always like kind of lean up into that space between the two front seats, and I'm like, "What's up, man? Like, how are things?" You know, and they immediately open up. They want to talk to you about where you're from and tell them about themselves. Almost all of them speak fluent English, or enough English to carry a conversation. It's so cool. And like you, Charles, and Hanaa knows this, but she grew up there, so she has kind of a different lens on it. But my first trip was 2009 or 10, and I remember same thing. Just like when you arrive to the airport, and it's not easy to get in. There's a real scrutiny of your documents. More often than not, the guy's just like ripping a cigarette, just being like, "So what are you doing here?" Like asking tough questions. It kind of sets the tone for the whole trip, right? Sure. And now it's just like, welcome to Saudi Arabia, men and women. They want it to go as quickly as possible. Everything in the airport is smooth. And I think what your answer was great. What I want to ask you is maybe it's a off-piste question, right? But we're always talking about what Saudi Arabia can learn from the United States, what it's like, as a country that is emerging to be more innovative and open and capitalistic, et cetera. What can the United States now learn from Saudi Arabia and its journey with Vision 2030?
Well, don't underestimate the value and energy and promise of your younger generations. I mean, the younger generations in Saudi Arabia are right at the fore of all of this electricity we're talking about and change. And I think I'd like to see more of that in the U.S. The U.S. can be at times mired in bureaucracy that we typically associate with other countries. And whereas Saudi Arabia now has this incredible ability and opportunity to shortcut decisions and go right to the meat of things. If something is important to do, it can be done with the wave of a pen, and that's really helpful, I think, to move things forward. We could use a little bit more of that in the U.S., and perhaps we're seeing some of that now. But I don't know, a belief in itself. Saudi Arabia has this incredible sense of being and purpose and pride and the energy. I'd like to see that, recaptured in the U.S. More than it has been. I think that's where we can go, and I think the relationship can energize that on both sides.
Yeah, it's funny. I was in a meeting the other day, and somebody asked me if they thought that, if they thought that, or if I thought that the Vision 2030 really was something that was kind of as a result of pressure from outside of the kingdom, or if this was something that looks like it's very much coming from within. And my response was, if you talk to Saudis, they own it. This is their change. This is their moment. They're doing the things that need to happen in order for the vision to be realized. And I think one thing that people maybe don't recognize is how we're keeping track of that progress. And I wondered if
Yeah.
you could tell us a little bit more of, kind of how people are owning this change and how the progress is being tracked and monitored and maybe even reported.
Well, that's above my pay grade, to be honest. There are all sorts of KPIs, as you probably know, within the Saudi government that are tracked to progress on 2030. I think those are very helpful in many cases, not in all cases. I think sometimes there's a temptation to become too KPI focused, but maybe it's because I'm just this way personally, but I show up and I just sort of get the feel. The feel is 2030 has done amazing things. Show
Just good
me
vibes.
anywhere on
Positive
earth
vibes.
that has made this kind of progress in this short a period of time in these multiple dimensions of politics, society, culture, business, finance. Show me anywhere. I don't really care if it's 40% achieved now or 80% achieved now. I just know that there are amazing, amazing achievements and advances, and the rest of the world can only look on with awe and some amount of jealousy in some cases, because Saudi really has achieved amazing things. And to say that it's coming from outside seems misguided and disingenuous. Mm, there's no doubt that consultants from all over the world played a role in helping to blueprint some of this stuff. But the core principles that 2030 is built on came right from Saudi Arabia and right from the leadership of Saudi Arabia. And no one can take that away from them. They deserve it, they own it, and the rest of us benefit from it, and the world benefits from it, because Saudi Arabia, rightly so, has taken center stage in the world for what it's accomplished and where it stands, and that is only likely to continue and grow over the next 10, 20 years.
I would say too that, it's the kind of thing where before Vision 2030 was announced, this is exactly what the West and others outside were pushing for or would have liked to see. They would have liked to see a more open society, a diversifying economy, investments in good investments and risky investments, non-risky investments, diversification of the asset base. I think these are all things that were being pushed for beforehand. And then the vision was announced and there was sort of like a disbelief that this could really happen. And now that it's happening, there's sort of like a, hey, like, where's our credit? Like that we did exactly what you thought we would do, and this is in our best interest. It's really an interesting time in 2025 in Saudi Arabia's journey. I want to ask you, you're a lawyer by trade, and you also have an MBA. So like, it's a really good combo. And we'll set aside all the lawyer jokes that I could put out here because it is a podcast. We don't have infinity time, but
thank you.
I want to talk about legal reform in Saudi Arabia and how that has positively impacted investment into the kingdom. As you know, there's been a bit of a downturn on foreign investment for a few years in a row. There's going to be a renewed look at what we can do to make this a more attractive destination for foreigners to place bets in the kingdom and see strong returns. How has legal reform, in your view, and from your expertise as a lawyer, helped that in the kingdom?
Well, again, we probably need a separate program on this. Don't get me started. But needless to say, I mean, it's had a massive impact. I mean, in my career, I was representing primarily U.S. and multinational companies coming to the region, in particular to the kingdom, doing joint ventures, partnerships, acquisitions, all the things that are involved in corporate and commercial law. To form a company in Saudi Arabia, however many years ago, it took us 18 months if we're lucky. Now it's not even 18 days. It's may not even be 18 hours in some cases. So those are the types of reforms that were necessary. And that's just one small example of many regulatory reforms across the spectrum. So maybe implied in your question is, have those been successful? Yes, they have. How do you think about those in terms of a decreasing FDI recently? I don't know. All I can tell you is that number would be much lower if those legal reforms were not enacted. That is really, really important. And take it with a big grain of salt, because I am a lawyer by trade. But those things are very, very important. And I've always said, in your outreach to the US, think about the lawyers, because they're oftentimes the first stop for US companies thinking about a project in Saudi Arabia, or an acquisition or an investment in Saudi Arabia. And those lawyers have a good story to tell these days. And that wasn't always the case. That's huge. So that's a necessary ingredient. I don't think the legal aspects can be attributed to any downturn. All I know is that without them, we have a harder story to tell. And as we talked about in very many other areas, the story is there now. We just need to tell it better. That's what I think.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I also think that there's another story that people are asking about a lot. So the regulatory frameworks are definitely, that's a change that maybe you don't hear enough about in kind of Western media when people are reporting on what's happening in Saudi. And we do need to tell that story better, because it does change. So it's the quality of life stuff. But then there's the political stuff, and people do push back on that quite a bit. How do you deal with these sensitive issues when you're talking to people that are they're really ready to come, but they might pull out because they're worried about what their consumers are going to think about them doing business with Saudi Arabia, and they have an old version of Saudi in their minds, or don't think that the progress is happening fast enough? How do you address that?
Yeah, it's very challenging. It's very frustrating. I do encounter it. It would be misrepresenting the truth to say that we don't still encounter that across the United States. As I said earlier, even at high levels of business and government and otherwise, the only thing we can do is tell the story that we know to be true, and tell it as best we can. And that's what I try to do every day of my life in this role. I also did that every day of my life in my prior role, because I thought it was really important for people to know the truth about Saudi Arabia. And that's not to say that you don't have a right to some political view, but just understand what the reality is now on the ground. And please don't form such an informed opinion without coming to the kingdom and talking to people and visiting various places and institutions. And then if you still have the same perspective, I'll beat you down. But no, we'll talk about it. But don't sit there in Minneapolis and think that you know everything there is to know about Saudi Arabia without ever having been.
Charles Hallab, President and CEO of the U.S. Saudi Business Council, which is launching a new partnership center. Is that right? It's the U.S. Saudi Partnerships Office. Is that what it's called?
The U.S. Saudi Business Council Strategic Partnership Center.
Strategic Partnership Center, SPC. Yes. Love it.
SPC.
Charles, thanks so much for joining us. We enjoyed it. Come back anytime, especially as you get to building and get to the work that we talked about earlier. This was great. Thanks so much.
Thank you both so much for having me. Great to be here.
Thank you so much. Let's get to the news.
Let's get to the news. Okay, Franklin Templeton, the huge financial organization based in the United States of America, plans Saudi products with a $5 billion PIF agreement. U.S. asset manager Franklin Templeton is ramping up its presence in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, planning to launch financial products tailored to both international interest in the kingdom and local demand for global exposure. The move follows a preliminary agreement with the PIF to deploy up to $5 billion into the country's markets, signaling a major vote of confidence in the kingdom's economic transformation. While sector agnostic, Franklin Templeton will initially target Saudi companies aligned with Vision 2030 goals, including aviation, healthcare, and renewables. We see strong opportunities where global capital can support growth and vice versa. Dina Sharma, senior executive at Franklin Templeton, said. Good news. Definitely what the various ministries tasked and the PIF would like to see more of in Saudi Arabia. Mabruk.
Yeah, congratulations. I think this is just, more of what Charles was talking about. Luckily, people are recognizing that Saudi's, it's on the up and up. There are a lot of interesting economic opportunities, and it is a place where people are happy and ready to do business. So I am happy to see this. The more investments across these different sectors, the better. So also interesting and related is that Saudi Arabia launches Tourize to reshape global tourism. It's unveiled Tourize, which is a pioneering global platform that's aimed at redefining the future of tourism by utilizing and uniting kind of this platform to unite leaders from the public and private sectors across tourism, technology, investment, and sustainability. And I know that AI and tourism is something that Saudi is really interested in. So as the tourism industry rebounds, with projections indicating an $11.7 trillion contribution to the economy globally this year, Tourize really seeks to address challenges like evolving traveler preferences, capacity constraints, and so on by fostering collaboration and innovation. In an inaugural invite-only event, Tourize Summit, scheduled for November 11th to the 13th, 2025 in Riyadh. It's going to focus on themes like AI-powered tourism, disruptive business models, sustainable travel, and so on. Tourism is one of the most dynamic connective forces in the world's economy. Tourize will be the much-needed platform to shape the future of tourism, said His Excellency Ahmed Al-Khatib, Saudi Arabia's Minister of Tourism and the chairman of Tourize. So this is going to be a year-round platform that facilitates digital collaboration, thematic working groups, and cross-sector partnerships to drive long-term transformation in the tourism sector.
I was reading this as Tourize. But
really,
Tourize makes more sense. I don't know, but Tourize kind of sounds like a little bit more bougie. But yeah, this is cool. I mean, timing is obviously interesting here. Does kind of mark a bit of a shift. I mean, look, AI powered tourism is definitely the future. Disruptive modeling on that. That's clearly where we're going in tourism. Saudi Arabia did launch an AI empowered tourism woman. Bot, I guess it is, to sort of help with
her name's Sarah,
yes, because we did a segment on it, which was quite popular. But I think this is really cool. I think this shows innovation in the tourism sector for Saudi Arabia. You are always seeing tourism as sort of being placed out there as an example of how the vision is really working and how changes in tourism, for example, can have tangible impacts for other sectors. I think this is something that is kind of next gen of that. And it's cool to see this level of innovative thinking with tourism officials. Kind of a fan of Tourize or Tourize for those of us who take a little bit more of a polished lens on it. But yeah, it's cool.
Is that what it is? Okay. Yeah, I think it's cool too.
Yeah. Okay. So we're ripping through news right now. You want to stop and chat? This is going really quickly. Moving on, Saudi Arabia is accelerating auto industry localization. The kingdom is rapidly advancing its automotive industry localization, aiming to become a key re-export hub, according to the Minister of Industry and Mineral Resources, Bandar Al-Khorayef. This initiative aligns with the Kingdom's Vision 2030 goals to diversify its economy. Of course, we know that, leveraging its strategic location and infrastructure, which has been invested in a lot recently to boost non-oil exports. At the Qatar Economic Forum, Al-Khorayef highlighted the kingdom's emergence as a significant player in car re-exports, supported by advancements in infrastructure and logistics, a focus on the electrical vehicle industry to transition to clean energy, and the adoption, I can't read at all, long flight, of advancing manufacturing technologies and fourth industrial revolution applications, including AI and robotics, necessitating robust digital infrastructure. In 2024, the year of our Lord, Saudi Arabia's non-oil exports saw a significant increase, with their contribution to GDP rising from 16% to 25%, not bad, driven by effective government policies, a favorable investment environment, and active private sector engagement.
Right. So how about these cars?
Yeah, how about them? What cars are we talking about here?
You tell me, which cars are we talking about? So
I
if we're going to
don't know.
re-export, are we talking about like, what do you call them? Sear? Or are we talking about different cars? I'm really interested.
I think re-export means, right, you're like, you're getting cars, you're importing cars, assembling them, and then exporting them. Like, I'm not entirely sure which cars.
That does sound what re-export sounds like, right? Like you import it,
because Sear will be manufactured.
It was exported once, and now we'll re-export.
How many exports can we have? Import, export,
like an
export.
Importer, exporter. George Costanza.
Yeah. Import, export.
Yeah. What was it? Diapers, I think. Anyway. So yeah, I think, sorry. I think it's great to see that there are opportunities for, kind of manufacturing expansion in different industry as well. And with the know-how that you're going to get from the Saudi kind of designed and produced cars, then there should be, more opportunities to expand in this sector.
I think this is a big space, right? Like, I mean, you want Saudi Arabia to be a manufacturing hub. And so you have to be competitively, you have to have competitive advantages in that. And I think they have many. That their location is one, that they have so many shipping ports, and with Cake and others in the Eastern Province and others on the Red Sea as well, you have really good ports for this. I mean, like that. Those
others in the Eastern Province. You mean the Dammam port, for instance?
A couple of those over
like
there.
It is the busiest and biggest port in the kingdom. Whatever. It's also like quite safe at the moment, anyways. Whatever.
Yeah, okay, they're great. Everybody loves the Eastern Province. We got it. So, but like you have these advantages that you can leverage, right? I mean, like you have cheaper than the U.S. anyway labor. There are things that you can sort of leverage for this. This is big business, so I see this as a good move. But I'd like to see which cars are being brought in as parts and then assembled and then re-exported. If anybody is listening or watching and knows about such cars, I would like to drive in suburban Maryland, not even suburban, rural Maryland, a car that has been exported to Saudi Arabia, assembled, manufactured, finished, put back on a ship and brought back over to Baltimore Harbor, and I'm driving it around. I'm in. But yeah.
I think that maybe there was probably more discussion about it at the Qatar Economic Forum. But yeah, if anybody wants to give us more information, that would be really interesting.
I missed a lot of that forum,
it
was like I was on a flight.
You were on your way here. Yeah. Or back to where you are. So finally, I'm going to wrap up with some really exciting news. The iconic American rock band Guns N' Roses is performing in Saudi Arabia. So at the time of this recording, they will officially be recording tomorrow or performing tomorrow, and that means that by the time everybody's heard this, we'll know how well that show went and how exciting it was. So I think Guns N' Roses they started out of Los Angeles in 86 or something like that, but obviously iconic rock band, and Saudi has a pretty large heavy metal following. Metallica is pretty big in Saudi. I knew a lot of people that liked AC/DC when I was growing up. But I've always really loved Guns N' Roses. They're performing at the Kingdom Arena, which holds 27,000 people. And Rayan El Rashid, the director of operations for booking artists for basically booking artists for Middle Beast, which is hosting this, emphasizes the significance of this event, basically stating that, quote, Saudi Arabia has become a key destination for global music acts. By hosting the legendary artists like Guns N' Roses, we aim to elevate the kingdom's presence in the global music scene. So when I was just in Saudi, my friend told me that she was taking her daughter to this concert. And I was like, I had no, like her daughter is 15, I think, maybe 16, or between 14 and 16. And so I was shocked that she liked them, but apparently kids these days like Guns N' Roses too. It did bring up a conversation about like potentially like kind of embarrassing details that my sister and I shared about the music that we used to listen to when we were younger. So we may or may not have had a Motley Crue poster in one of our rooms, but I'm not going to tell you any more information about that.
I think that everybody wants to hear a lot more information about that. They're known for obviously Axl Rose and Slash on the guitar, and then you have Sweet Child of Mine, Welcome to the Jungle, Paradise City. I mean, they're iconic. Oh man, the like opening riff in Sweet Child of Mine. Maybe we'll have that play us out today. I don't think we're allowed to do that, but like I don't really care at all. So yeah, I mean, this is really cool. So it's funny because we took a break from our interview to this segment, and I had just enough time to do a phone call. I called a guy that I know in Saudi Arabia, in Riyadh, on a completely different matter, of course, and he was just like, yeah, so I'm going later to Guns N' Roses. And I was like, oh, okay. I had no idea they were playing, but that's actually awesome. There is a huge like punk rock, sort of like heavy metal, whatever it is. It's kind of a little bit, not punk rock, but they have blues kind of intonations, I guess, or you would say. Anyway, I love Guns N' Roses. I'm not like waking up and blasting Guns N' Roses, but like when it comes onto a playlist, I'm like, oh, this is sick. I like love Guns N' Roses. Anyway, welcome to the jungle, Dr. Hanaa. This is the fastest news segment maybe of all time, and I don't know why that is, but maybe people like that. I have no idea.
So I was waking up to Aerosmith every day for like, a year at least, maybe more. I don't know. I can't listen to the song anymore. I know, like, it makes me feel like I have to wake up.
Yeah, wake up. Well, I asked you, like, when I was like, we were traveling, I like sent you a message like, what do you do to get like fired up for a meeting or like fired up for a presentation? Or like I was on stage a bunch on this trip. It's kind of why my voice sounds like not great, and it always doesn't sound great. But I mean, like especially so. But like,
what do you do? What do you do?
I listen to like deep Kendrick Lamar, Drake rap, and you were like, I hate this stuff, and I'm like, what are you talking about? It's amazing. Music. Yeah, it's awesome. So like, I listen to that kind of stuff, and
I listen to I did listen to quite a bit of rap back in the day. The rap that like there's now memes about like moms that listen to gangster rap the second they drop their kids off at school, and it was like kind of nursery rhymes. Those songs, those are the ones that I did like to listen to, kind of early 2000s, late 90s rap. but like, I don't anymore, and I really don't like new rap very much.
So no Kendrick, no Drake, no Future, none of that stuff. Oh man,
no. But like Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Tupac, all of that's great.
Those are classics. Yeah, absolutely. Chronic 2001 is the greatest rap album of all time.
But it's horrible. But it's actually horrible music. Like it's good. It's fun. And I loved it then, but like listening to the lyrics now, I'm like, oh my goodness, like this is so incredibly violent and misogynistic and horrific on all the levels. But yeah, so no, I don't like, and then my son's like listening to Eminem, and I'm like, okay, this isn't good.
No, but I mean, it's part of the genre. Like, I mean, you're sort of like, you kind of just like, when you listen to it, you're not like, yeah, I agree. Let's get a gun out and light up the place. It's not like that. It's just sort of like the vibe, right? But really, so you don't do anything to get fired up. If you're like, hey, you're going to give a speech to His Royal Highness and whatever, the Keir Starmer, and they're there and they want to, and there's 10,000 people there, you're not doing anything to get fired up?
So I'm thinking about, no, the 10,000 people thing doesn't phase me the way it phases a lot of people. Like I can get up on a stage and speak and like it's fine. I'm sure like if there were
Same.
really important people in the audience, it would be harder. It's more like I'm thinking back to when I did my thesis defense, for instance, and like that was obviously one of the most terrifying experiences of any of my life, like anything that I've ever done, right? Taking a test is one thing, but I've spent 4 years writing this thing, and then I had to go talk to two people that had read it very carefully and defend it. Like what I did to get fired up there was I called my parents. I called my dad.
Really? Okay. And you're like, hey, Dad, what's up? Okay.
I was like, I'm about to go in. Wish me luck. I need to hear that like somebody loves me unconditionally. So that's what I did.
When people ask me like how you get so comfortable like speaking on stage, obviously it's like reps. There's a few things that I think about. One of them doesn't apply to them, but the audience of this podcast is now way bigger than any in-person audience that I will ever address. So almost 50,000 people. So it's like, I just think about that. Like when we talk on this, it's just you and me or you and me and a guest, right? But it's just like, but many people listen to it. It just does not affect anything at all for me, as you plainly see. The other thing that I think about, and I just don't get nervous anymore. But if I did like get nervous, I would think about like my children in the front row, because they would just be like, this is so great. He's the man, whatever. And that kind of like takes some feelings off. And then like, as far as like getting amped up, obviously I mentioned Drake, Kendrick, etc. But then jumping in water for me also like completely resets everything. The pool or the ocean, whatever it is. Like if I have a big work day, then I'll go out there and jump in the drink and then be like, okay, cool. I don't know why, but it's like, you know,
interesting.
It seems to work. Yeah.
Yeah. No, none of that. Like, I'm sorry, but like, there's no way I'm going to jump in a pool before a presentation. I have to do hair and makeup. So there's
what I don't.
I mean, so like, there's, you know, there are things, logistics you need to think about. But for me, it's not even about the preparation of like every detail, but it really is like, if I know my topic and I'll now only speak about things that I really know about, then I feel confident because I can just talk about the thing that I know so much about and feel like, you know, it's an area that I'm just, whatever. Like there's something that I do, which sometimes, you know, I'll play through my head, which is, it's an episode from the, show Schitt's Creek where, David's going to take his driving test. I don't know if anybody remembers this, but he's freaking out and what's her name? What's the girl's name? I can't remember her name all of a sudden.
I made it like 3 episodes into it and I was like, man. And you told me to like keep going and I was like, nah,
it's like my favorite show. Anyway, so it's my show that I watch when I just need to like unwind because it's so funny. So the sister like turns to him and is like, David, nobody cares. And he's like, people care. And she's like, nobody cares about you the way you care about you.
That's a very good point. That is a great point.
And so sometimes I think, okay, Alexis says nobody cares. And that I just go with her voice in my head. Nobody cares.
Yeah. I struggle to stay on script. Like I'm not a great script guy. I mean, like, it's why I like podcasts, because just like, whatever, you just go up here and a bunch of hot air comes out. But like, if you
script a little bit,
we script a little bit. Otherwise, it would just be us talking about what we do to get fired up for speeches and Guns N' Roses. And people would be like, I think this is
people
a Saudi
probably
podcast,
already, right? Yeah, they already have checked out. Like, this is so irrelevant.
I don't think so, though. At this point, the news was like 1 minute long. They're like, okay, cool. Like, what? But thank you very much to Charles Hallab for taking the call, the chance. Obviously, he had just gotten back. I have just gotten back. I feel amazing, by the way. It was one of those.
We
like,
all
you get
just got back from Saudi.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Yes.
But like, you know how you go to bed when you get back? It's less for you, but like when you come back to the United States, it's like you're going to bed at like 8:30 p.m. and you're like, this is amazing. I wish I could do this. But I feel amazing. It's great to see you. We are back. Thanks to Charles. Thanks also to Mead for having me as chairman of the Giga Projects.
We didn't even talk about this. Next episode, I'd like you to really talk about that event, which is super important. Next
cliffhanger, huh? Okay, cool. Dr. Hanaa, thanks. See you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.